I'm Michelle Tennant Nicholson. I am the international publicist and chief creative officer at Wasabi Publicity and co-founder of Pitch Rate, a media networking site. And it basically makes sure that your pitch is the appropriate pitch for the journalists and producers who are using that. What we're doing here today with everybody is a hashtag 21-day PR action guide challenge. We're completing it for the month of September 2020. This is the book, and if you don't have our book, you can download it for free during the pandemic at pitchrate.com. And if you're wanting more information about what this series is and where you've landed, you can go to wasabipublicity.com and go to the blog, and you'll see where I've been blogging since the spring, since the pandemic started, about just this is a public service that we're giving away. I've been doing PR for 31 years. I've seen PR transition from typewriters to Twitter. I'm 51 and I'm at the stage of life where I want to give it all away because I never know what tomorrow might bring, right? Did you like that introduction, everybody? So if you like that one, do that. Because last week I realized I watched it again and man, my introduction was poor, okay? No wonder there was a few people like, I'm confused, what's happening? So I thought I'll do a little better about actually doing an introduction for those of you who are brand new, okay?
Yeah.
And tell other people too, if they're like, what, when you're in your breakout, like, who is this person? The purpose of these meetings is really a PR huddle. It's just really a place to get together and give you creative ideas. So there'll be a little bit of lecture from me, but the juice and the magic actually happens in breakout sessions. And don't worry about, just come as you are. It's Friday afternoon. The team, Hannah and I just planned out that we're going to continue to do these as a public service. It doesn't look like the pandemic's going to end anytime soon. So I just want to make sure that we're supporting those businesses that are pivoting, and you might not have the resources to put a PR firm on retainer. That's the whole purpose of this. And so if you do need help, you want to write down Hannah at wasabipublicity.com. She will help you get resources that you need in this pandemic. Whether you have $5 or you need free, all the way up to, hey, you've got 5 to 10,000, we will definitely help you spend that, okay? So right now, everybody put what you want to plug in today's meeting. We have any given time anywhere from 50 to 100 to 150 people registered. And so if they're not live with us today, I can see everybody, you might not be able to, but they'll definitely see it on our YouTube channel, the Wasabi Publicity YouTube channel, in rewinds. So also, you guys make sure you have my complete permission to go to the Wasabi Publicity YouTube channel and just plug yourself in the comments, because we don't always see the chat rooms in the rewind. So if you want, I want you all to have as much exposure as you can. So one of the things that, it's not the topic that we're talking about, but for those of you who've been with me for a few months, the last 4 months I've been fighting an asphalt plant trying to rezone property 1,100 yards from my farm. I'm proud to say that we've united over 11,000 rural neighbors now. And it comes to a head next Thursday with a board commissioner meeting. You can read about it in the blog, because I've even surprised myself at how much PR and how many local placements we've gotten, both in print and also radio and TV. But the thing that I've really found, you guys, is those comments are gold, right? So you get a placement at a print or broadcast venue, and then they have a slot for you to do comments. It's one of the most overlooked areas for you to then say more. All you got to say is, thank you for the love. Just thank them, right? A lot of people don't know that journalists today actually get paid by the shares and the click-throughs. So while there, I was actually telling everybody in the movement, it's called friendsofeastflatrock.org, to go comment on, and it's weighted all toward the neighbors because the opposition, they don't really know how to use social media, but that's one of the most overlooked places for you to just get free PR, okay, in those comment sections. So are we, everybody plug? I gotta open up my chat and see what's happening now. Okay, awesome. And then Hannah's taking care of all the links that you need. And Hannah, don't forget to throw your email address in there so people know how to reach you if they need. You know, this is the place to ask those questions you may feel are stupid. No question is stupid, but you may feel uneasy about your question. You may also just need, you might be a solopreneur and you just need someone to bounce ideas off. This is a safe place. And so definitely let Hannah know what you need. Now, on to the topic of today. Last Friday, I promised that you would get my secrets to media training. Who remembers? Okay, good. All right, you ready? It's a little bit of a lecture time. How about before we, you know, I just like to let people just get acquainted. How about we just do one quick breakout, just kind of get acquainted. You can say what you've really enjoyed from the workbook, working on your challenge this month, or you can just introduce yourself, or you can just say, I have no idea what to say, and I'm just going to sit here for my minute. Now we're going to break out for 5 minutes, which means you only have a minute each. Somebody said, and I always read what's in the chat, and you can save your chat by left clicking on the ellipses at the bottom right hand corner of your chat, and that'll save to your computer. Of course, I have a Hannah, she always sends it to me, so I cheat a little bit because she sends it to me later. But the thing that you want to remember is that no matter what you share, no matter where you are in the process, it's fine. And the purpose of the call is really to have other creatives be a huddle for you. If one of you is a timekeeper, to go ahead and keep time, I like to have something like this, like a minute, so that people can kind of see the minute passing or whatever. But last week somebody said, oh, we just didn't have enough time. But the purpose is also to figure out how you pitch. The reason why we named it Pitch Rate, our media networking service, is because people typically talk too long. And the press really needs you to pitch quickly. And so this is a way to practice that pitching quickly. So whatever you want to talk about, if I'm always pressed and I have nothing else to say, I will, like, let's say that I'm in a local chamber of commerce, and everybody goes, okay, and now it's time to go get some snacks and network while you're drinking your wine, before the pandemic when we did that. I'll just walk around and people will just, and I'll say, hi, I'm Michelle. I put people on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Who are you? And they get it. They're like, what? Even if because most people collapse publishing with publicity. Publicity and publishing are two different things. And by saying something about the Wall Street Journal, it tells them that I work in a national sphere and that just what I actually do. So try to just practice something quick like that. Okay, let's go ahead and break out for 5 minutes, speak for 1 minute each, and then we'll come back together. Promise to do today, I'm going to put it in the chat, is we're talking about how to be a great storyteller. This time last month, we talked about leveraging placements. I'm not going to go as in depth as I did last month, but I'm going to talk a little bit about own, paid, and earned. We already started a little bit about the comments. And then I also like to reevaluate at the end of each month. Naturally, with all of our campaigns, I like to look to see, like, are we on track with our why? If we lose sight of why you're doing a PR campaign, you can't really evaluate how the PR campaign is going. So one of the things that for the clients that I serve personally, sometimes when I just ask the question, well, why are you doing PR? It actually changes the scope of who we're after, especially like a simple question like, do you want general consumer or do you want trade? And that's a completely different pitch, right? Whether I'm calling something like Massage Magazine, which would be indicative of a trade publication to reach all massage therapists, very different than a pitch for Good Morning America, who's really looking for things that are tying into what's trending. What's trending, which is interesting in our small group with Shell Harrington and Dell, is that we were talking about rebooting, right? So what's hot right now, because they are TV producers, Hollywood and such, they can't, it's the pandemic, they can't get together and create new content. And so you're going to be seeing resurgence, a lot of our favorites from the past, like a blast from the past type thing. So that type of campaign is going to go very well now for the next 6 months. So if you have something like that, be thinking about it in terms of the blast from the past, rebooting or reminding people of great times. That's going to go very well. Of course, right now, what's the most hot is our politics and our pandemic. So first of all, anybody who would like to share about their break, because we're now going to go into the promise of my secrets of sound biting, what we're actually going to be talking about, what makes great storytelling for an interview. And I'm going to be sharing with you what we charge big bucks for with media training. So, but before we get into that lecture, does anybody have anything to say about their break or anything that they would like to ask? So you can either put it in the chat, we'll see it there, or you can just raise your hand, or you can actually raise it. There she is. I see Elizabeth.
Yep. I was going to say that we had a really great talk. And one thing that Mitch brought up to remind you is like, well, this is the problem that I have. So something like you, like I put people on the Wall Street Journal, this is what I do and it's direct. Something like me, like communication, I have to bring up what the problem is, what's the hurt, why do you want better communication? And then say about how I solve the problem instead of I do communication. Or like whenever I say speech language pathology, they're like, oh, like stuttering. Like, yeah, that's this amount of the massive, right? So then, okay, what's the problem? And then how do I solve it? So it's always reminding, like bringing up the problem first. So that was really interesting.
Yes, and then so let me, so for most of us, Marketing 101, because that's one of the things that we promised to talk about today. So for those of you who are big, deep thinkers, I'm talking to you. Those of you who are like, I don't really care, and I just really want my tips, I'm not talking to you, okay? So you can go get a cup of coffee or something, okay? So I've been doing PR for a long time now, and part of what happens with our brain patterns is that, and by the way, if you haven't seen Social Dilemma, I highly recommend it on Netflix, is that problem solution is how the father of PR, Edward Bernays, crafted PR in the 1920s. I have a master's degree in human development. I'm a complete geek when it comes to these things, okay?
Oh, and
he sold us, now listen, he sold us cigarettes as women because women weren't buying it in the 1920s. So his client, big cigarette company, by the way, Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And they're like, how can we get women to buy? How can we get women to buy? He's like, oh, let's take some suffragettes, put them in the Macy parade, have them smoking cigarettes, and then women will think smoking cigarettes is part of independence and power. And history wrote itself, and you can see, and that was one of many ways that he helped. His books are about propaganda, manipulation, subliminal. I mean, we've been at the effect of that for a century. We see it kind of like at the, in a macro way right now, the damage that it can do to us. So the truth of it is Elizabeth, yeah, at a base level, what we're doing in marketing is problem solution. I'm actually working with Drew, my business partner, on a higher calling. And I'm hoping that one day, Hannah, do you have my, in my signature at the bottom, it has my Medium, the January 2020 article. Will you throw that link in for everybody? I would like all marketers to speak in terms of that we're all okay, whole and complete, and there's nothing to do. That is a lofty goal that we may never see in our lifetime. But I hope that one day, with as much that we know about brain development, that we stop this nonsense that we're actually broken. I'm going to get off the pedestal now. But that was my macro, and you can read more about it in, there's a question and answer in Medium with me about like why I do PR and why I continue to do PR and why I'm not burned out. most of my colleagues in PR burn out at a few years because it feels like we're manipulating people. But if you manipulate for good, then your legacy is actually fulfilled. That's one of the things that we're talking about when in sound bites. I'm segueing now. Segue. We're now segueing to the content. So rather than just, it's one thing to have the gift of gab, right? Like I talked about in my blog entry yesterday, that my mom, she'll talk to anybody. And I've been she's living with me now. She has a heart condition. She's been with us because of the pandemic. She wants to go home, but it's just not smart. So I've noticed, like, oh my God, she's talking all the time, right? And I've got the gift of gab that she's got, but it's not really, it's just that we're putting what's in our brain on loudspeaker. And I want to say that when you do an interview, that is not the strategy to do. The strategy is to create talking points and 3 sound bites that make a difference. So right now, get out a piece of paper and a pencil. Imagine that you're going to be on Good Morning America tomorrow. This is everybody, marketers, journalists, authors, whatever you do, everybody just do this exercise right now. You're going to be on Good Morning. And so the producer says, okay, you're going to be, we're going to do a pre-interview, but they're going to say, I need your talking points. And then you're going to be like, oh my God, what do I send them? Hopefully you've written something in advance, like this press kit, right? Oh, I can't share. Hannah, just throw in our sample, some sample press kits. I'm wanting them to see like interview questions. Talking points are simply like, you get 3 points that you want to say. I like to siphon them down into single words so you can memorize it easily. Then you set up questions so that they ask you, so that you give those sound bites. But more importantly, peppering those sound bites with a story, a statistic, a sample, a success story, like my alliteration there, something like that, so that they remember the storytelling. They remember what's the most, like, what is impactful. They're not going to remember your tips. They're going to remember the stories. So right now you're answering for yourself. Okay, I'm imagining I'm on Good Morning America. What are 3 things I want the audience watching to be left with? And write that down right now. Oh, great. So Hannah put in our client that does money for kids and families, financial socialization, and you'll see her interview, and then also Humane Society. Good. So we've got an author, we've got a nonprofit. How about some type of like corporate CEO person? Yeah, maybe, let me see, Hannah. Let me feed that to you.
Ann Grady. I just put Ann Grady in there for you. Who else?
Ann's Grady.
Okay.
That's enough. You got your corporate, nonprofit, author example. Perfect. So now take those 3 things, like it might be, it usually starts pretty theoretical. So you want to take it from theory to something practical, but you might not be able to get there easily. So you're just like, okay, like for the medium example, so I want people to be left with about PR, right? That marketing, that what if we marketed that everybody was whole and complete? Can you imagine the different political environment we'd have right now? If I were on Good Morning America tomorrow, I would say I would definitely get in that conversation about Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma is a documentary about former Facebook and Pinterest and Twitter and all of those executives. They've left Silicon Valley and they're whistleblowing so that you have consciousness about why you feel addicted to your phone. It's by design. It's by design. You're being manipulated. So that's where I would do my 3 that way, and then I would figure out some memorable stories about that. And I would probably tell like a memorable story for mine. So be writing down a memorable story for one of your three, and then write a statistic, and then maybe a success story. My story would be about my mother, who's now living with me, who never used technology. And then my brother gave her an iPhone. And in the pandemic, her phone, she has an iPhone. I'm a Droid person. So I always hear it in the other room. Ding, ding. And then my 84-year-old mother, who has a heart condition, is like, oh, I have to go check my phone right now and see why I'm getting pinged. And then of course it's like Fox or CNN. She's German. Okay. And I'm like, I was like, what is it? Michelle, do you know such and such celebrity, she loves the royals, right? She's German, right? Meghan Markle, do you know what she is doing right now? And I'm like, I don't really care, because it feels like work to me, and it's 8:00 at night, and I'd like to not work anymore. That has been my life. And so when we're watching The Social Dilemma, while we're watching it about being conscious to why you're addicted to the phone, there she is. I put a little rocking chair in so she can watch the movies with us, There she is on a ping, ping. My 84-year-old mother is addicted to her phone. Thank you, Google. Okay? So that's the kind of story, like you would never get over my German mother who has an accent like she just got off the boat yesterday, right? You remember that forever, right? Okay. Now, what is your story? So the first thing is so you've got your 3 problems. So while I'm talking, now I'm doing this other lecture, I want you to be filling that out. So you've got 1, 2, 3 points, and then I've got a story, a statistic, a success story in those 3 points. Siphon the point down to 1 word. I'm going to work with somebody. Don't worry if you're like, oh, I just don't really get what she's talking about. This is what I do when I media train. I get on the phone and I say, hi, Hannah. How you doing? Hannah, what are the 3 points you want to make in this interview? What do you want this, 1,000 million, 10 million people to be left with? What action do you want them to take? And then we create those sound bites. And they usually go something like, oh, I want every woman to be empowered. Or I want everybody to write, buy my book. Well, that's not what we're talking about, right? What we're talking about is the gift, the education, the entertainment piece that you're giving the audience, the reader, the listener, the viewer. And then what story are you going to actually talk about? So there's one, I'm going to tell you this example from one client. I was media training him. He came to us, he's a long talker. He'd already done TV, and his interviews were horrible, okay? I'm not going to say that to a client, but they were terrible. He got on TV, they asked one question, he gave a 4-minute answer, segment over, right? Those guys who are like, and then like the anchor's trying to get a word in edgewise, and you can see it. It's like a train wreck, right? And you're like, let the anchor ask you a question. Okay, he was like that. And I worked with him. I said, you got to get your point down for 45 seconds. You've got to be able to tell your 3 points in 45 seconds or 45 minutes based on what you're gifted from the press. And he's like, well, I just need more time. It's all about brain science, and I'm a big wig from Stanford, and I've got to do this and I got to do that, right? I'm like, no, you got to get it down to 45 seconds or, okay? Well, we worked. Do you remember Montel Williams? Okay. He was slated to be on Montel Williams, okay? With us, and it was 9/11, one of the 9/11s, okay? And it was the night, like that week, I was like, you've got to get it down. Like he did this whole exercise for the brain, right? And I said, you got to do it in 45 seconds. He goes, it's impossible. I said, you've got to do it. And you've got to do it in a way that a child understands. So he practiced that all week. And sure enough, his Montel Williams interview, which was on the phone, of course, the person before him was crying and was really reliving 9/11. And you can't cut that kind of person off. They literally he had like 15 minutes originally scheduled for the interview, but because he got bumped, they got on and they said, whatever his name was, hello, we only have 45 seconds left. Can you tell us it's very heartbreaking, the previous story that we had, what's something that we can do to heal? Literally, he had 45 seconds. So he was like, he delivered. It was the first time my entire staff they all went, aha, I got what he's teaching. It was brilliant. He got a national magazine was listening. They published him because he was so clear. Finally, when you're pushed to do it in 45 seconds. So he had maybe you've got some type of exercise. Maybe you have some tips. Maybe you have a story. Doesn't matter, right? You're filling it out, right? So your 3 points, then you fill it out however much time you have. And then your call to action. So I'm going to give you a formula. So Hannah, will you grab the formula as I'm talking about it? Every interview is like a sales process, okay? And then I'm going to talk about these. The first one, establish credibility. That's one. This is all I teach in the media trainings we do. 2, what's in it so we call it WIFM in the sales process, right? What's in it for the viewer? What's in it for the listener? What's in it for the reader? And you got to turn from your credibility quickly to them or you lose their attention. And then you end with a call to action. Donate some money to my charity. Go buy my book. Here's a free chapter. I love you so much. Here's a gift. Here's an event you need to come to. We're just doing this for the good. Hopefully tonight, you're going to do that with your husband or your family. Whatever the call to action, it doesn't matter. So that's it, Hannah. Those 3. That's your formula. There. That's what I get paid the big bucks for. You have it. That's your gold. Okay. So how do you take that? Like, for example, this is all I taught Ann Grady, and you can see some of her interviews, and she took this man hook, line, and sinker, and like nobody's business does it in her interviews. So the first one, like I can do my whole interview in 45 seconds. So establish, hi, I'm Michelle. I've been doing PR for 31 years, seen it transition from typewriters to Twitter, and I just put people on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. What's in it for the viewer, listener, reader? Well, one of the things I do is teach media training, and we talk about how to structure an interview. You got to establish credibility. You got to talk about what's in it for the reader, and then you got to give them a call to action. My call to action. You know what? I would love for you to participate in my hashtag 21-day PR action guide challenge. I'm giving it away during the pandemic. Come be with me. Free. Hashtag 21-day PR action guide. It's so funny how many people ask me, how can I find the stuff? If you literally put in Google hashtag 21-day PR action guide, you're going to find all our assets on that, okay? Oh, I love it. Okay. And that's the other piece about hashtags. Why? Is so that people can find you in the search engines. That's it. Take it, borrow it, steal it, go teach other people. It's really simple. And in today's glutted marketplace, you better have that formula inside your posts, inside your blog entries, it's just the basic sales formula, right? Because by and large, nobody cares about you. They care about themselves. Let me repeat that. Nobody wants to buy your book. Nobody wants to buy your product. Nobody wants to give money to your charity until you enroll them, entertain them, entice them, move them to action. You've got to move people to action. That's all that PR is. I have 11,000 neighbors who don't really it's unreal that, oh, I'm so busy. I can't really deal with the asphalt plant. Just let them come in. Really? Oh, I can't. Well, it's just so political. Yeah, it's the most political thing you'll ever go through in your adult life. You've purchased a home, you've bought property, and you've invested in it for close to 20 to 30 years, and you're not going to fight for it. Got it. You're not going to enroll 5 people who vote for your life. That's what I'm dealing with on a personal level. And the apathy that we have as a populace is shocking. But you know why? Because this is what's coming at us constantly, because thanks to Edward Bernays, thanks Elizabeth for that segue, and it was almost like a plan, that one. But yeah, we have been born and raised into a culture that constantly asks us to be a capitalist, a consumer. Buy, 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 buy. So craft your interview inside this, and they will literally line up for you. Because fundamentally, as humans, we just want to be related to each other. We just want to be together. We want to learn from each other. We want to be, so again, right from the book, the press, all they need is to be educated, entertained, enlightened. Meanwhile, we've got tons of authors out there talking about their book. Well, give some of it away. Give it some away. All right, that was my lecture. Lecture complete, right? So boring. Didactic. You guys, I used to teach 5th grade when I was in graduate school. And there's another story for you, okay? About how to actually entertain, educate, and inspire. So I got placed as a substitute teacher, long-term substitute. I took over this 5th grade class one year, and the principal took me into her room. And she said, we don't expect much of you this year. You got all the problem kids. This is verbatim, a actual principal in Cincinnati, Ohio, telling me this. We don't expect much of you. You got the problem kids, and they were terrible for the previous teacher. So just skate through. We're not even going to use your test results and the standardized testing we're probably going to hurt us more than it's going to help us. To say the least, I was completely shocked and kind of like, should I report her type of situation when I left that meeting. I was a low man on the totem pole, so I didn't have a whole lot, and I was focused on graduate school anyway. So I went back to my classroom. They gave me 30 kids. Then they kept getting new 5th graders. So eventually I had like 35, 36, 38. But I come from an early childhood background. So I set up centers in my room. I wasn't didactic. I wasn't teaching young children like we should be in college. But the previous teacher was like, every day the kids got to school, they had to write definitions, right? I was like, y'all are 5th grade. It's like Bill Nye the Science Guy time. Let's like make recipes and talk about chemical reactions inside recipes. And then we were all like eating pudding and, having fun with it, right? So I had centers. I had like the body over there, and this, your reading nook over here, and then the reading center and the writing, or your body and the sky, whatever, like whatever the curriculum said, I had to like then put it for them to explore in the room. So the principal would come by my room and just sit because they were 38 kids, completely enthralled, because you just put it out in the structure for them, right? So enthralled that there were no behavior problems. She took my aid. So she was so excited about how I was doing, she rewarded me by taking my only aid. Yeah. So I was alone as a teacher with 38 kids. And you know what? My team teachers told me the next year that my kids exceeded the science test results from the other teacher. So I tell you that story because yap, 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 or this doesn't teach you anything. What teaches you is being on the court, actually exploring and learning and doing. So if you're sitting here and you've just listened to me instead of actually writing your 3 down, it's not long lasting for you. So with that said, we're going to do a breakout. This is our equivalent of those centers from that 5th grade classroom. By the way, one is still found me on Facebook. One. And she's so sweet. She does chickens like I do. And we have opposite political values. It's hilarious. And it just teaches me to love everybody and to have an open mind in all cases. Because I love her, I'm like, oh, really? That's how you grew up? It's fantastic. I love you. We're both Americans. Okay, so we're going to break out into sessions, and you're going to do your 3. Just your 3 points. Could be 1 word, could be 1 sentence, but inside your minute, make it quick. Tell me if you know who Jack Canfield is. Raise your hand if you don't know who Jack Canfield is. Interesting. So, yeah, right. In my world, because I've been in personal development since my early 20s, I thought everybody knew who Chicken Soup for the Soul was, right? Now, you may know Chicken Soup, but not Jack, right? So I was using Jack Canfield as a credentialing point for my Japanese client, Ken Honda. Like I was saying, like Ken Honda, he sells so many books in Japan. He's like the Jack Canfield of Japan. And the press were like, I don't know who that is. So I learned pretty quickly that if you're going to use a celebrity as a credentialing point, don't have it be dated. Or maybe he's big in your circle or big in Japan, but not big in your world. Right? And that's how, in our small group, that's what we talked about. So like, and you don't want, if you're in a group, like you have a credential, like where's my Elizabeth? Elizabeth is credentialed also with HUNA and neuro-linguistic programming. Yeah. So Elizabeth babbled better. She could actually, but I think that you only pull that out if you want to grace them with, like, right, you're doing then PR for them, because your degree stands on its own. Right, so many of you use your credentials, especially because you've paid so much money to learn from whoever, right? Don't be talking about Tony Robbins unless Tony Robbins is paying you to do PR for him. Let him get his own PR. You know what I'm saying? Let the light shine on you. So, Hasina, can I share? Well, I'm just gonna talk about it. We all know Black Lives
Matter. Go ahead and share. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Here's what I said to in this date. This is being recorded September 25th, 2020. Okay, and at the time, if you're seeing this like 10 years in the future, I want you to know that this was the height of Black Lives Matter. Ruth Bader Ginsburg just died. Our Supreme Court Justice just died last Friday. We are all reeling from it. Hasina Jackson, say a little bit so that we can see you. Otherwise, the video won't get you.
Say a little bit. Oh, okay. I was just
practice your pitch for us, like you did in your small group.
Which was, we live in a world of uncertainty, and my words are transform, change the world, and make a difference. Let's come together to focus on a plan of action so we can move forward, making changes in our lives and each other. So sign up today for a complimentary coaching session or a lunch and learn for your team. And let's take action today and stop waiting for something to come to us.
Okay, great. And her 3 words were transformation, change the world, make a difference. In the original small group, she had mentioned who she's been studying with. John Maxwell, you said, right? And I asked her, I said, is John white or black? And she's like, like, who cares, right? Here's why it matters, is because the press is hungry for powerful women who are African American speakers today, period, right? Breonna, I grew up in Louisville. The press is reeling the past 72 hours from Breonna Taylor. They are hungry for African American female voices. And I don't want to get all like, in that macro conversation because we've done too much in this hour, but it's important to not diminish who you are when you establish the credibility for those that you're associated with. Don't I will not, like, I think I'm so funny about it. I won't wear a shirt with some corporate brand name unless they paying me, right? So I said when I bought both my cars, the local, like, bought them, like, you negotiate a good deal. And then they got their thing on the back of the car. And I'm a publicist. I was like, okay, if you're going to take another $1,000 off my car, I'm going to keep your name on the back of my car, but you got to pay me $1,000 for that. And they look at me like, what? We're not going to do that. And I'm like, take your brand off my car then. You're local, unless you paying me to put your name as I drive around town, I'm not going to do PR for you. And they're like, But see, we're so embroiled in that capitalism that we don't even think twice. Your time is valuable on this earth. Make sure that what's coming out of your mouth is succinct to your commitments, right? Brevity, the soul of wit, right? Hasina Jackson could go to any TV reporter. Are you in the Bay Area? That's what your picture says.
No, I'm in Chicago.
Oh,
I just
you see that picture.
right.
Okay. Well, when next time I lived in Chicago for 5 years. That's where I learned PR. So next time you're on the Lakeshore Drive, get your picture and put that behind you so we think that you're from Chicago, not the Bay Area, Hasina. And you asked me, who do you actually pitch? You literally call up the TV station and if you want to take this on, do it and then tell me if it works, okay? This next week, call your ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, go to their website, go to the contact us button. It's going to tell you where the main number is, and you call. Don't call at their broadcast times. They get crazy about that, right? So like, off the time that they're on the air, and say, she'll say, hi, CBS, can I speak to your assignment desk? Sure. So then they'll pass you into the assignment desk, okay? And there'll be a really busy producer there. Hello? and then you'll say, that pitch, do you have a morning show that could use me? I would really like to inspire your audience. Oh, hold on. Yeah, you know what? Joey, but he's gone for the day. He comes in really early in the morning and he leaves about 1. I'm going to put you into his voicemail. Or can I just give you hold on. And then they go away and they come back. All right, you ready? Here's the email. So Hasina's going to take that on. We're not going to meet again until Hannah will put the dates on for us. Let's see. Not October 2nd, because that's the day after the commissioners vote. I'm going to be tired. It's going to be October 9th, 16th, and 23rd is our next calls. And a completely new campaign in October. I want you to complete powerfully what you started in September. And right now, all of my campaigns that I'm doing for clients, I put them to bed and say, okay, we failed at this, we succeeded at this, and now we need to switch gears and do this for October. October's Halloween, height of the harvest, people getting ready for the holidays. With the pandemic, the holidays are coming early. So people are thinking about, being together, the lonely stuff, we've got our politics are going to be at the height of the conversation in the politics in the pandemic. Okay. Black Lives Matter is not going anywhere. Women's movement stuff not going anywhere. Those kinds of tie-ins. Okay. So I would love for somebody to come back that Friday and show us on October 9th and then share with us the TV interview they got out of that one tip I just gave you.
Okay.
You don't have to have a fancy media list. Now, if you want to purchase a media list, contact Hannah at wasabipublicity.com and she'll tell you all our secrets on how we get media lists, right? You can purchase media lists and do all that kind of stuff. But also you can just go to their website, go to the contact us button and literally email them that pitch or tell them on the phone. I like to do this. Like if they're a print venue, I'll write. And I'll write wherever, email, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you see them engaged, right? YouTube, wherever they're engaged, you do. And if they're a broadcast, I call because they've got the gift of gab. Radio people don't like to write. Why do you think they went into radio? Where's our radio people here? I know there you go, Mitch, but Mitch, you got a podcast or something, right? On travel?
I'm in the travel world now, but I started in radio television.
Of course you do with that voice. Say a little more so we can hear it. It's just delicious.
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth this country a new nation. Enough.
Right? Yeah. And so Mitch, let me ask you, was that your experience that you just didn't want to go through a bunch of emails if you're a radio guy, right?
You have to hear the soundbite.
Yeah.
And if somebody's got a squeaky voice, their credibility goes. Unless they're really somebody special. they were victim of a crime or something like that. But ordinarily, you want them to sound wonderful and fit your programming. So hearing what they sound like can't be done on a written message.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I actually, when a client comes to us and they don't have any what's called tape, they don't have any tape on them, we'll record it. I'll just do a Zoom call with them so that the
Right.
Good Morning America can actually see them in action. And you can do that yourself. If you don't have anybody to do that for yourself with, please let Hannah know and we'll get that help. We'll get you that help, okay? So we're coming at the end. I want to make sure that I talk a little bit about earned, paid, and owned. If you heard that earlier and you're not quite sure what that is, it's very simple. Paid is advertising, Facebook ads, iHeartMedia ads, traditional print ads, Google ads. Owned is anything that you own. Your website, your social media, your brochures, your business card, all your assets, your intellectual property. You have complete control over the messaging of those two things. You can put your credentials and your top 3 things that you want them to get, and then your call to action, because you control the message. Where I play and what we're talking about with PR is earned media. The old saying is you pay for advertising, you pray for PR. And that's really that earned editorial. And it's very gray in today's marketplace because so many podcasters are doing, and then bloggers are taking money and all this stuff. Our influencers make the world gray. But it's the essential piece of what it is. A real journalist is looking to be educated or entertained, and they don't want any of the other stuff, right? And it's their control. They control the message, not you. So you're actually working for them. And we don't ever lose sight of that. And they're the ones in control. I actually had a journalist once say to me, and that's your call. I'm like, no, it's actually not my call. I'm clear you're the one in charge. And she was like, oh, that's true, right? So it's their work, and they get very irritated if you ask them for a draft or show me what the interview is, or sometimes even if you share these interview questions, they'll, well, I'm a real journalist, don't send me questions. So you got to have that relationship with them and figure out and by the way, get inside their world. I want to end on Rachel Ray. Rachel Ray had a massive fire in her house. If you pitch her right now and her people and you don't know that, shame on you, right? It's very important that she's going through something very traumatic, and you should know that about the people that you're pitching. Just take a look at their Twitter page, see what's going on, okay? So to leverage your earned media, then you can, when you get that piece, that article or that interview, then take it and pepper it through all your advertising, all your owned assets. That's what that piece was in our promises for today. So what we talked about is the Gift of Gab and true storytelling. True storytelling has some prep in it. It's not just like my mom did, just off the top of her head. And then we talked about earned, paid, and owned media. And then we talked about that call to action. So between now and next month, evaluate your PR campaign based on the call to action that you put forth 2 Fridays ago, okay? And if you need anything, don't forget to save the chat. It's a little ellipses in the bottom right-hand corner right now. Hit that, save to your computer. And that's the call. Thank you so much. I love all of you. Please let us know if you need anything.